The Salamanders are one of the most interesting and unique of any of the Space Marine Legions. They have quickly become my favorite Space Marine Legion because of their Primarch Vulcan, their heavy use of flamers and meltas, and because they're considered the nicest of any of the Space Marine factions. So today, I want to show you why they become my favorite so quickly, and do a bit of a deep dive into the Firestorm Assault Detachment that lets you best use your Salamanders in Warhammer 40k 10th edition. I'll be using Wahapedia for this video, which is a great free resource to observe the rules for Warhammer 40k. The Firestorm Detachment is about, above all, getting close to the enemy quickly so that we can unleash our relatively short-ranged firepower at a higher strength. This means all our ranged weapons gain assault so they can advance and shoot with any of their guns, which is very strong on its own. But also, when using a weapon to target an enemy within 12 inches, we can add 1 to the strength of that weapon. While this may seem like a small change, 1 strength can change a wound roll from a 4 to a 3 or a 3 to a 2, and this is something that our flamers or other small arms fire could really use. The close range eradication attachment rule is quite strong on its own, but it's the stratagems that really unleash the Salamander's power here. The first stratagem I'll mention is Armor of Contempt, which is obviously available to all Space Marine detachments. However, this doesn't by any means mean that it's useless, because for 1 command point you can effectively improve the save of 1 unit for your opponent's entire shooting or fighting phase. The wording is a bit complicated, however, as what it actually does is worsen the armor penetration of incoming attacks by 1. So if your unit is under attacks from AP 0, it doesn't do anything. Still very strong if you're trying to save an important unit who is going to be coming under heavy fire for a phase. Next, I want to mention Immolation Protocol. If you're a beginner using your Salamanders, this and Armor of Contempt may be the only stratagems you'll need for the entire game. Immolation Protocol will affect a Space Marine unit in its shooting phase, specifically a unit using weapons with the Torrent keyword. Until the end of the phase, Immolation Protocol will give the Torrent weapons devastating wounds, meaning any roll of a 6 to wound cannot be saved by the opponent. This is great to use on a 10-man unit of Infernus Marines who will be putting out 10d6 hits with their flamers and have the potential to deal a lot of damage. Ideally, using Vulcanistan to lead this unit will allow them to re-roll those wound rolls and have the potential for even more 6s turning into dev wounds. The next stratagem is Crucible of Battle, which can be used to target 1 Space Marine unit in the shooting or fighting phase. It adds 1 to the wound roll of your attacks as long as it targets the closest enemy within 6 inches. Useful for our flamers to wound medium armor better, or useful for a unit like Blade Guard veterans to be able to wound on 2s in close combat. Speaking of Blade Guard veterans, I would use them with Adrax Agatone, who not only has his very own strong melee weapon, but will also allow the Blade Guard to re-roll their wound rolls as well. Now, the remaining 3 stratagems interact with transports, which, while may not be as thematic for the Salamanders as the Flamers are, provide us a great game plan to get our units up the board quickly and use their short-range firepower. Onslaught of Fire allows one of our units that just disembarked to fire at the closest eligible target within 12 inches, and get an extra +1 to hit. Then, if at least 1 enemy model was destroyed, that unit has to take a Battle Shock test. Rapid Embarkation is next, and this one is really tricky and bound to surprise your opponents if you don't warn them about it. What it does is allow 1 Space Marine unit to embark into an empty transport that they're within 6 inches of at the end of a fight phase. Being able to have a unit disappear at the end of your turn and take away a target from your opponent is a massive advantage. Now there are a few restrictions, however, and of course the unit that enters the transport cannot be within engagement range of enemies and can also not have disembarked from a transport in the same turn. Still, I think this is a very powerful movement shenanigans stratagem, and the 6-inch range makes it even stronger. Finally, we have my favorite of the transport-related stratagems with Burning Vengeance. Burning Vengeance is activated in your opponent's shooting phase after they target and resolve attacks against one of your transport vehicles. Once activated, the unit inside your transport can now disembark as if it was your movement phase and shoot as if it was your shooting phase, as long as they target the unit that attacked your transport. To me, this seems like an absolutely perfect defensive transport stratagem, as it really is 2 birds with 1 stone. You get a free disembark and a free shooting phase all on your opponent's turn for only 1 command point. I want to note that the first 3 stratagems are battle tactics and can be targeted for infantry units, meaning I would highly encourage the usage of captains, as they can utilize their free stratagem ability to use Immolation Protocol or Armor of Contempt multiple times in a turn. As far as enhancements go, I don't usually build my army around them unless they're truly standouts, and in this case I don't believe there are any standouts. Adamantine Mantle allows the bearer to subtract 1 from incoming damage unless it's a torrent or melt weapon and the damage becomes 1 instead. For 20 points, this could make your leader very resilient, but Gravis captains already have a very similar ability. Forged in Battle is 15 points and allows you to turn 1 hit roll or saving throw into a 6 once per turn. Not bad, but honestly I would figure this ability half the time and not make it worth it. War-Tempered Artifice increases the strength of the bearer's melee weapon by 3. Quite significant if you want to punch tanks with your power fists, but for 25 points, doesn't seem super useful. Champion of Humanity seems like the best one, and comes in at 10 points. Units with this enhancement can ignore any modifiers to their characteristics or rolls or tests. Meaning, if an enemy unit slows you down, you can ignore it. If something makes you take a battle shock test at -1, you ignore that -1. Quite good, especially for being so cheap. All in all, I would only add the enhancements if you need to fill out the extra points in your list, in which case, they might come in handy. When building a Salamander's army, there are a few standout units I would highly encourage bringing. First of all, the Infernus Marines, led by a captain or Vulcanistan, seem like an auto-include. While they might not be the best Space Marine unit normally, they gain so much from this detachment. Next, I would strongly consider a 6-man unit of Flamer Aggressors, led by a Gravis captain, for the exact same reasons. The boost from Assault and +1 strength will really help torrent weapons here. Other auto-includes feel like the Repulsor and the Land Raider, which we can use to transport our maxed out units around the map. Second string recommendations would be Eradicators and Blade Guard veterans. For the Eradicators, I feel like this army might struggle with anti-tank damage without them, and for Blade Guard, like I already mentioned, Adrex Agatone feels like the perfect leader for them. I think that Games Workshop did an amazing job giving the Salamanders a very thematic and powerful detachment in this edition. Hopefully this video inspires you to go out and give them a try, or convince your friends to. And let me know down in the comments below if you play Salamanders, or if you want to play them. Feel free to leave any questions or comments down below, I'd love to hear them. And thanks a lot for watching, take care.